70% of lottery winners end up broke within 7 years. Not struggling, broke. And the reason almost no one talks about is this. The moment that money arrived, their brain had already classified it as something less than real. That one mental mistake is one of the most expensive psychological quirks in human finance. And here's the unsettling part. It doesn't just affect lottery winners. It affects all of us every single time we receive money we didn't have to work for. Welcome to Money, the channel where we dig into the real forces shaping your financial life, the psychology, the history, and the human stories behind why we do what we do with our dollars. If you're new here, hit subscribe and ring the bell. We publish new videos every week, and this stuff genuinely changes the way you think about money. Now, let's explore one of the most quietly destructive quirks of the human mind, and why it's probably costing you more than you realize. Here is a question that sounds almost too simple. Is a dollar always worth a dollar? Mathematically, yes. A $100 bill buys the same groceries whether you found it blowing down the sidewalk, won it in a poker game, received it as a birthday gift, or earned it after a long shift. It's the same paper, the same number, the same purchasing power. And yet human beings, real, emotional, complicated human beings, do not treat all money equally. We never have. The source of money quietly shapes how tightly we hold it, how quickly we spend it, and how much guilt, or freedom, we feel in the spending. A dollar earned through effort carries a completely different psychological weight than a dollar that simply appeared. And that difference, as small as it sounds, is responsible for some of the most spectacular financial disasters in modern history. Let's figure out exactly why. So let's start with the man who formally named this phenomenon, and later won a Nobel Prize for it. His name is Richard Thaler, a behavioral economist at the University of Chicago. In the 1980s, Thaler noticed something that classical economics couldn't explain. People don't treat money as interchangeable. Instead, we mentally sort our money into different invisible buckets, accounts that exist only in our heads, and we apply completely different rules to each one. He called it mental accounting. Here's a classic example. Imagine you're on your way to a concert and the ticket costs $50. You reach into your pocket and discover you've lost a $50 bill somewhere along the way. Do you still buy the ticket? Most people say yes. They just absorb the loss and move on. Now imagine a different version of that same evening. Instead of losing cash, you realize you've actually lost the concert ticket itself. $50 gone either way. But now most people say no, they go home. The financial hit is identical in both scenarios, but our brains categorize the two losses completely differently because they came from different mental accounts. That is mental accounting in action, and it governs our financial behavior far more than most of us want to admit. And this is where windfall money gets really interesting. When money arrives unexpectedly, a bonus, a lucky win, an inheritance, a gift, your brain files it in a completely different mental account than your paycheck. There's no labor attached to it. No trade-off. You didn't skip lunch to save it or give up a weekend to earn it. And so it gets filed in a mental category that carries far looser spending rules than the account labeled rent, or car payment, or savings. It feels lighter, more spendable, almost like it was designed to be used up rather than protected. Think about birthday money as a simple example of this. When someone hands you a card with $100 in it, what actually happens to that money? For most people, it is nearly impossible to put birthday cash into a savings account. It feels wrong somehow, like you're not honoring the spirit of the occasion if you don't spend it on something. But nobody ever feels guilty saving their paycheck. Nobody feels obligated to treat themselves with their wages. That guilt only surfaces with gift money, money that arrived without labor attached, money that the brain wants to celebrate rather than store away. And that single distinction is costing people enormous amounts over a lifetime. Here's one of the most widespread examples of this psychology playing out in everyday life: the tax refund. Every spring, millions of people receive tax refunds and treat them like a windfall dropped from the sky, spending them on vacations, electronics, impulse purchases, things they would never dream of buying with their regular paycheck. And the irony is quietly devastating. A tax refund is not extra money. It is your own money that you overpaid to the government throughout the year, sitting in their account, interest-free, until they send it back. It was yours the whole time. But because it arrives in a lump sum, because it feels like it came from somewhere outside your normal financial routine, your brain reclassifies it as bonus money, and the spending rules change completely. Studies have consistently shown that people spend tax refunds with far less discipline than equivalent earnings. Same dollar amount, same bank account, completely different psychology. The government, whether accidentally or not, has figured out exactly how to make you stop noticing your own money. Now put all of this inside a casino, and things get genuinely wild. There's a phenomenon behavioral economists call the house money effect, named after the old gambler's phrase for playing with winnings rather than your original stake. Researchers found that when people bet with money they've already won at the table, they take dramatically higher risks than they would with the cash they walked in with. The winnings feel abstract, almost theatrical, and if they lose it, they tell themselves they were never really ahead anyway. So what's the harm? Except $1 is $1. The winnings are just as real as the original stake. But the brain doesn't experience it that way. Walk through a casino and watch the difference between how people handle the cash they brought from home versus the chips they've accumulated from winning. The chips feel fun, light, almost playful. People stack them up and push them all in without hesitation, and those same people would think carefully before dropping that amount in cash. The abstraction is the trap, and casino designers understood this long before behavioral economists gave it a name. The house doesn't just benefit from the odds. It benefits from the psychology. Lottery winners are the most extreme case study in all of this, and the stories are almost hard to believe. Jack Whittaker won $315 million in the Powerball in 2002, the largest single-ticket jackpot in American history at the time. Within a few years, he had been robbed multiple times, lost his granddaughter to a drug overdose she'd funded with cash he'd given her, and watched his marriage fall apart. He said publicly that winning was the worst thing that ever happened to him. Evelyn Adams won the New Jersey lottery twice in the mid-1980s, 2 separate jackpots, more than $5 million total, and was eventually living in a trailer. William Post won $16 million and was $1 million in debt within a year. His own brother hired someone to kill him for the inheritance. These are extreme stories, but the pattern behind them is anything but rare. Windfall money has a dramatically higher burn rate than earned money. And the reason isn't stupidity. Many of these people were sensible, ordinary individuals before they won. The reason is that money without effort doesn't arrive with the habits, the frameworks, or the psychological relationship with money that people build slowly over years of earning. Every paycheck is a small lesson. It teaches you about trade-offs, about discipline, about what things actually cost in hours of your life. A lottery win skips all of that. You get the result without the education, the wealth without the wisdom, and for most people, that equation has only one outcome. There is actually something happening in your neurology here that is worth understanding. When you earn money through genuine effort, through work, through discipline, through delayed gratification, your brain ties that money to the effort through a chemical process that deepens your sense of its value. Earning something activates the brain's reward circuitry in a more durable, more embedded way than simply receiving it. Psychologists call this effort justification. The harder you work for something, the more you value it. People who assemble their own furniture consistently rate it as more valuable than identical furniture that came pre-built. Students who struggle through a project judge it as more worthwhile than students who coast through the same material. Money follows the exact same logic. The paycheck you work for lives in a different psychological universe than the check that just arrived. And this is exactly why inherited wealth almost always disappears within 3 generations. The grandparents built it. They carry the discipline, the habits, the deep psychological ownership that only comes from having created something from nothing. The children may have watched and absorbed some of that. But the grandchildren receive the result without the journey, and study after study shows that inherited money is treated more loosely, spent more freely, and protected with far less intensity than money someone fought to accumulate. The wealth transfers. The mindset doesn't. So what do you actually do with all of this? Because understanding a bias is only useful if you can change something about your behavior. First, when you receive any windfall, consciously resist the urge to file it in a mental, fun money category. Give it a job before you spend it. Assign it to something specific, an emergency fund, a debt payment, an investment account. The vagueness of extra money is precisely where the mental accounting trap springs. Structure removes the trap. Second, recognize the house money feeling when you notice it, in a casino or in the stock market or anywhere else you're sitting on gains. That feeling of playing with free money is a psychological sensation, not a financial fact. A dollar is a dollar, regardless of where it came from or how long you've held it. And third, if you ever come into a significant windfall, the single most reliable piece of advice from financial researchers is simply this: wait. A mandatory pause of at least 6 months before making any major financial decision dramatically improves outcomes for lottery winners and inheritors alike. Give the money time to stop feeling like magic and start feeling like money. Those two things are not the same, but they can become the same if you give yourself the space to let that shift happen. Here's what I keep coming back to. We like to think of ourselves as rational about money. We tell ourselves we know what things cost. We know what we can afford. We make careful, level-headed decisions. But we're human, and human brains are not calculators. They're storytelling machines. They assign weight and meaning and emotion to numbers. And where a number came from is one of the most powerful parts of the story we tell ourselves. So the next time money arrives in your life without you having to bleed for it, a refund, a bonus, a lucky night, ask yourself one honest question: would I spend this the exact same way if I had earned every single dollar of it, hour by hour? The answer might genuinely change what you do next. If this video gave you something to think about, hit the like button and drop a comment. I read every single one. And next time, we are going to explore another fascinating corner of financial psychology that might surprise you just as much as this one did. I will see you there.